The Canadian coastline dissolved into a thin gray smudge against the horizon. George Leslie Mackay stood on the deck, his grip tightening until his knuckles turned white against the cold railing. Behind him lay the life he had built, the familiar streets, and the warmth of his family. Ahead, there was only the vast, churning expanse of the Pacific Ocean. Days bled into nights as the ship cut through the deep water, the silence of the open sea pressing in on him. He held his leather-bound book, the only weight in his hands, as the world he knew drifted further into memory. When the ship finally dropped anchor, the transition was jarring. The air at the Tamsui docks was thick, heavy with the sharp scent of salt and the acrid bite of burning wood. He stepped off the gangplank and his boots sank into the thick, dark mud of the shore. He looked out at a landscape of narrow, winding paths and wooden shacks that huddled against the humidity. The horizon here was not a line, but a wall of strange, towering trees and unfamiliar shadows. He stood alone, a stranger on a shore that offered no welcome, listening to the rhythmic slap of water against the rotting wood of the docks. The village did not want him. When Mackay approached the locals to ask for directions, they stared with hardened eyes, pulling their children back into the shadows of their shacks. He did not speak a word of their dialect, and his presence was met with cold, deliberate silence. He spent his first nights curled on a damp floor, his stomach churning from the unfamiliar, bitter food that he could barely keep down. Every morning he walked to the marketplace with a small, worn notebook. He would point at a basket of grain or a bundle of firewood, repeating the sounds the vendors shouted back at him. They mocked his clumsy pronunciation, laughing as he struggled to shape the foreign tones. He did not look away. He stood his ground, his throat raw and aching from hours of repetition. He was ignored, pushed aside, and treated as a ghost in the crowd. Yet, he returned every single day. He watched the way their lips moved, the way they gestured, and he recorded every syllable in his book. The rejection was a physical weight, but he refused to retreat. He stood in the center of the market, a man defined by his persistence, waiting for the moment when the wall of silence would finally break. The rhythm of the market shattered. A low, guttural groan cut through the chatter, rising into a jagged cry of pure pain. An elderly man sat slumped on a wooden crate near the center of the square, his hand clamped tight against his jaw. His face was a mask of sweat. The vendors nearby stopped their bartering. Shoppers froze, their eyes darting between the man in agony and the stranger standing just a few paces away. The air grew heavy, thick with the scent of damp earth and the man's desperate, rhythmic moaning. Mackay felt the shift in the atmosphere. He set his notebook down on a stack of crates and moved toward the center of the circle. The crowd did not part, they simply watched. Mackay reached into his bag, his fingers finding the cold, hard surface of the iron forceps. He pulled them out, the metal dull and heavy in his palm. He walked to the crate, the silence in the market now absolute. He stood before the man, his gaze steady, and gestured for him to open his mouth. The man hesitated, his eyes wide with fear, but the pain forced his hand. Mackay leaned in, the forceps poised, and the entire market held its breath. The iron clicked against the tooth, a sharp, sudden pull, and the source of the agony was gone. The old man gasped, his body jolting as the throbbing pressure vanished from his jaw. He sat motionless for a heartbeat, his hand trembling as he touched the spot. Then his eyes met Mackay's with a look of pure, stunned disbelief. He bowed his head low, pressing his palms together in a gesture of profound gratitude. The market erupted into a low murmur that quickly grew into a roar. By the next morning, the silence that had defined Mackay's existence was replaced by the shuffle of hundreds of feet. A line of people snaked from the marketplace, winding through the narrow alleys and stretching all the way to the edge of the dark forest. They came with swollen cheeks, infected wounds, and eyes clouded by years of neglect. Mackay did not stop. He worked until his fingers cramped and his hands shook with exhaustion. He cleaned deep infections, pulled teeth, and bound wounds. From the first light of dawn until the sun dipped below the horizon, he accepted no payment. He offered only a bowl of water and a steady, calm presence. Years turned into decades. The man who arrived with nothing spent his life anchoring himself to the soil. He stacked stone upon stone to raise a church, then placed pencils into the hands of children who had never known a classroom. He lived through the threat of war and the changing seasons, eventually finding his final rest in the earth he had served. The stranger who once wandered the docks became a permanent part of the landscape. Today, the hospital that bears his name stands as a testament to that choice. It remains a functioning bridge between his past and the future of the nation. His life proves that a single person, armed only with compassion and persistence, can reshape the history of an entire land. He chose the unknown over the familiar, and in doing so, he left a mark that time cannot erase.